Survival horror has got to be one of my all-time favorite genres, and I firmly believe that some of the best games in that genre came out on the PlayStation 2. Tonight, let's take a look at a title that wasn't on everyone's radar. Rule of Rose was developed by Punchline and released in 2006. This title was published in North America by Atlas, which I guess is a little ironic considering how much everyone's been talking about Atlas. Rule of Rose carries a heavy plot, but the plot itself is a departure of the typical survival horror title of the time. You're not really going to find any zombies in this one. Here goes. England, 1930. Jennifer, a 19-year-old young lady, has arrived at an orphanage. For whatever reason. She arrives at the orphanage only to be transported and trapped in a world that is completely controlled by the Red Crayon Aristocrat. The Red Crayon Aristocrats is essentially a group of kids that have established their very own twisted brand of high society. So, you start off on a bus. This bus is completely abandoned save Jennifer and some mysterious little boy. The boy insists that Jennifer reads the story only to run off. So Jennifer follows, and after a few plot developing detours, Jennifer finds herself at the Rose Garden Orphanage. Strangely enough, there seems to be very few, if any, adults at this orphanage. Before Jennifer knows it, she finds herself stuck between fantasy and reality. At least that's how it came across to me. Frankly, you just might find yourself asking a whole lot of questions while you're playing this game. But there are a few things that are somewhat clear. 1. These children are not normal. 2. There's an evil entity called Stray Dog that apparently kills naughty children. Finally, Jennifer is definitely connected to these kids, this orphanage, and probably Stray Dog. She's not there by accident. So level by level, you're going to be given an unusual and sometimes twisted scavenger hunt of sorts. Basically, the leader of the Aristocrat Society decides on some item that must be delivered to the drop box in a timely fashion. I want you to keep in mind that at this point, for whatever reason, you're no longer in the orphanage. You're somehow in an airship. Now, I know I said there were no zombies, but there's got to be some kind of enemy. Otherwise, this is going to get real boring. Enter this guy. Now, he's going to come in different varieties, and some are much more disturbing than others. So yeah, there are some enemies in the level, but more often than not, you can simply run past them. Actually, I think that's what I did 90% of the time. But you can't run past bosses. Bosses in Rule of Rose are often quite disturbing, but I never found any of them to be incredibly difficult. Most of them use a pattern of some kind and can easily be defeated. So, if it's not the enemies that makes this game difficult, what could it be? Well, the puzzles. Rule of Rose uses a very unique and interesting way of seeking out and solving puzzles. Brown. You can select items in your inventory and have Brown find other items that are associated with the original item. That was a lot of items. While this feature is often essential in moving forward in a level, it's also incredibly useful, especially when you need to load up on a bunch of health before you face a boss or a horde of imps. But there's also design features that make this game difficult, and frankly downright frustrating. Let's talk about the camera angles and controls. Well, they suck a lot of times. There were many times that I found myself blind to what was going on because of a wall or some other item in my way. I also died several times because the controls are so clunky I couldn't line up with an enemy to smack him. So regardless of the game's clunky control system, I think it does something very well. It makes you feel uncomfortable. Not scared, uncomfortable. Honestly, it didn't feel like a horror title. It actually felt more like a thriller, I guess. The music is often very tense, and I find myself in almost a panic of sorts when it started playing. The themes in this game also bothered me at times. See, there's this one cutscene that comes to mind. It seems the headmaster punishes naughty little girls in his own way. Now, I might be reading way too much into the dialogue and body language, but surely I'm not the only person that picked up on that, right? The game also dropped some pretty intense cutscenes on me that had me holding my breath. So the cutscenes bring me to the graphics of this game. And holy cow, one thing's for sure, it's pretty. While all the graphics in the game look great, the cutscenes especially blew me away. I really had almost forgotten how great games looked on the PS2. And honestly, I was kind of taken back to that moment when I first watched the opening cutscene of Silent Hill 2. So overall, the game is great, but would I recommend it? No, but let me explain. The game is currently selling for some pretty high prices, and when games tip over a certain point, I really start asking myself, is this a game I'm really going to play and love, or is it just going to sit on a shelf? Honestly, I think this game is really geared more to the hardcore survival horror fan. So I say, think about this long and hard before you run out and grab it. Get out of here with that. Now, if you do decide to jump out there and pick this game up, here's a little bit of advice. Take your time and explore every level. Utilize Brown a whole lot. Find as many things as you possibly can. It'll pay off if you get the good ending, and it'll certainly help make sense of the game's plot. Also, you can trade your weapons into the drop box for an upgraded weapon. So if you feel like you need something with a little more punch, try it out. As for me, the shovel worked just fine. Well guys, that's Rule of Rose. It's a great but pricey game. I enjoyed it and I plan on giving it another run through. And if you're a big survival horror fan, well, consider picking it up. That wraps things up. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.